We interview people from across Australia in the footprint of more than 250 Indigenous nations. We recognise and deeply respect our First Nations people, their heritage, cultural beliefs, and close relationship with the land on which we walk, drive, or fly over.
This episode of the Flying Doctor podcast has been made possible with the support of RFDS national partner HCF, Australia's largest not-for-profit health fund. HCF's commitment to the RFDS across Australia reflects its dedication to addressing the unique healthcare challenges faced by those in remote and rural regions.
I got a phone call from one of our neighbours and she said, "Oh, Ben, are you burning any rubbish down there by any chance?" And I was like, "No, definitely not. Can you go down and have a look? I'm on my way home." So I got in the ute, and by the time I got to the ute, she rang straight back and said, "It's actually your home." And it's our family home. That's my grandparents built it, and then I grew up in it, and my dad grew up in it.
Just turn around as quickly as we can.
That blood pressure is not coming up.
Unload the patient.
Is it a big property?
Still breathing okay at the moment.
Not a 493, understood, thank you. Put the stretcher back in, shut the door, and off we go again.
This is the Flying Doctor podcast, and I'm your host, Lana Howarth. Each week we fly to rural and remote communities across Australia and hear the stories of real-life patients who've needed to call on the Royal Flying Doctor service. Have you ever had an anxiety attack? I haven't personally, but I have close family members who have, and it is scary. My guest in this episode has not only battled with anxiety and mental health, but has also become an incredible advocate for mental health and has raised considerable money for the Royal Flying Doctor service in a very unusual way. He has guts, along with his friends who've been so active in this space. I think you'll enjoy hearing his story and learning about the challenges along the way. Hello, Ben.
G'day, how you going?
I'm really good. Where do I find you at this particular time? Where are you sitting at the moment?
Right now, I am in outside of a small town called Penola on the Victorian SA border, and on a family farm here. Not my family farm, but on a beautiful family farm here, raising sheep and cattle, and absolutely loving it.
That's great. What size is the property?
We're about 3,000 acres on this property, and then I've just brought a small farm down the road, just over 400 acres,
Right.
that, sort of coincides with this, but it is, our own. So it's pretty exciting. Didn't think I would ever move away from our family farm. Like, it was a huge step leaving the family farm to come over here. I fell in love. Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit later, I guess, but don't want to give too much away. But yeah, so moved over here, and it was such a big step, but I do not regret it one bit. It's been a big step forward.
You obviously have been brought up in a world of agriculture and are still living in that. Could you describe for me a little bit what your childhood was like?
Yeah, so I had a older brother and an older sister. We grew up on the farm. Like, our childhood was amazing until about age 5, and then our parents split up. So things changed a lot during that period. Had a few stepsister and stepbrother at one point, a couple of them actually, and then that sort of ended as well. But we've gone through different stages, and now I've got a new little brother as well. He's only just turned 2, so.
Wow.
So our childhood was amazing, up to that 5-year period. And then it sort of was a bit more challenging, I guess you could say. There was toxic stuff happening in the household, with some step parents and some alcohol and bipolar. And so it was a bit of a whirlwind teenage years. And I guess that's what stemmed into my mental health, I guess, as well.
It's interesting when you start to get blended families, isn't it? Because it really does bring challenges for the children within the family, because you grow up with a certain environment and certain people, and then there's new people all of a sudden that are part of that bubble, and it can be
Exactly.
quite
Yeah.
challenging as a kid.
And it's very confusing for a kid too, because it's all like, I was, 5, 6 when all this was happening, and I didn't even know what the word divorce meant. It's just that,
Right.
you figure it out pretty quick when someone moves out. But I always say now, like, looking back on that, it was horrendous for like the stages of it. But I wouldn't be the person I am today without that experience, without meeting different people and being in different circumstances. Yes, it probably caused my anxiety and all that sort of stuff, my depression at that point. But, I'm a better person now for it, I think. in my mind, and I'm very considerate and courteous to other people. I'm always want to help and educate people about mental health now, and that's sort of where my passion grew from, because I didn't have that help as such, because I didn't even speak about it back then. I wish I did.
So tell me a little bit. So obviously becoming an anxious child and having a fairly unstable or constantly changing family dynamic, how did that play out as a teenager for you? Did you end up displaying or having symptoms of whether it's anxiety or other challenges?
Yeah, I guess like in those teenage years is where it got the worst. I never really did like any school camps or school sports or anything like that. I was way too anxious, and mum and dad sort of knew that, and so they let me not do it, I guess.
What were you anxious about? Or was it just anxiety? Like, can you describe it?
It's being somewhere that haven't been before, and that not knowing anyone. I remember walking into, this is sort of when I was 18 and stuff, but like walking into like a clothes store, and like I would freak out if I was by myself. Like I always had to be with someone else. And if I ever did walk in, I remember going in there and I'd always like look around the store, make sure that like I knew somebody so that I could like not feel awkward, or I don't know what it is, but I just
Right.
didn't like the crowds and the being uncomfortable in any way. I never liked being out of my comfort zone. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was just being away from family and friends. I think being by
Mm.
myself. I didn't want to be by myself.
Yeah. I suspect that would be quite difficult if you're in an environment surrounded by other teens, where you've got that sort of anxiety. Did it create challenges for you?
Definitely did. I used my like I had really good friends that I could always rely on and always be with them.
Did they understand what you were going through, or were they just they just thought you were a really clingy friend?
I don't think they fully understood until later in my teens, when I learned what anxiety was. I didn't know
Right.
what it was for a long time. It just was just something that, yeah, I was dealing with, but I didn't know that it had a word and it was a normal thing. I think I was like 19 or 20. My grandma noticed all this, and she used to have to take me to the grocery store to go get my groceries because I didn't want to go by myself.
Oh,
So
wow.
my grandma would travel with me and go get these groceries. And it wasn't until she sort of really caught on with that she's like, oh, maybe we should go see, our family doctor. And that's when I learned what the word anxiety was, and that there was so many other people and people in my family that were going through this like similar thing, like my grandma and my aunties.
Oh, so no wonder your grandma said, "Hey,
Yep,
hey, Ben's got a challenge," because she
yep,
was already familiar with it and
yep.
she had her own challenges with it.
Yep, yep. So I'm very, very grateful that she did pick up on it. And once I knew what it was like, okay, now I can work with it and work with this challenge, and try and live with it, I guess.
Right. So at that time as a teenager, what were your aspirations? Were you, having brought up on a farm, were you sort of like, my life is always going to be agriculture? That's where I'm going to go, or did you have different ideas about your future?
I always wanted to be a farmer. That's always been in my heart, and I think secretly that's probably because it's was the easy option, but it was also, I knew it. I didn't have to go to a
Yeah.
workplace or anything, and
It's
um,
familiar. It's
it's
very
familiar.
familiar.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And I remember, like a lot of my friends that are farmers, their parents would make them do a trade or go work for someone else for a while, or go up north and go, jackarooing or whatever. And I never wanted to do that because I didn't want to leave. So yeah, I did my school-based apprenticeship on the farm, and yeah, it wasn't until I actually moved over here that was the first time I ever worked for somebody else.
Wow. It's good in some ways. I would also say that farming can be a fairly lonely activity. Like, it's you've got your routines
Mm.
and you don't bump into a whole bunch of new people, and you've
No,
got
that's right.
things that are very familiar to you, spaces that are very familiar with you, activities that are very familiar for you. And I can see that there's routine there that would actually be quite stabilizing for
Yeah,
somebody that's got anxiety. Would that be right?
100%. Yep, yep.
Yeah. So it's a good choice.
But I also like I love farming, and it's always been in my heart. And yeah, even though I'm not on the family farm now, it's still in my heart, and I'm still doing what I love. I'm very, very passionate about farming, and I love the finance behind it as well. I love planning for worst case scenarios, and Like, because I grew up through my teen years, during that period, it was 10 years of drought as well. In
Oh,
like,
wow.
my family farms just north of the Grampians in the Wimmera. Yeah, we grew up 10 years of drought, and I remember always thinking, oh, I just wish I had some money to help the farm, or we talk about debt and we couldn't buy these things because we were having a bad year and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And so that's where my love of finance came into play. And as soon as I turned 18, I went and brought shares, and I was like just trying to make all this money so that if we ever went into a drought again, I had this little nest egg to help out if it ever happened.
I think probably, Australia's history is littered with people that wanted to make a living on the land and just had Mother Nature, defeat them
That's
in
right.
various
Yep.
ways, whether it's droughts or flooding rains or fires or
That's right. And
whatever, So I think if your aspirations have always been to work on the land, then
hmm,
being good with money and planning and having that organizational skill is probably a really good asset.
that's right. And it's like with the droughts and the floods and the cyclones and all this stuff it's normal, and it always happens.
Yeah.
It is tragic, and it sucks. Droughts suck and whatever, but it's something that will happen again.
Mm.
That's why I always find it really important to prepare for that. Plan the best you can, I guess, with
Yeah.
the resources you've got. I know that, you can't just pay off debt in 1 year. It takes a long time and that type of thing, but, reduce that debt or whatever you're doing to alleviate that risk. Because my biggest fear is, losing the family farm or this place here, and, making sure we've got a strong foundation there so that that doesn't actually happen.
You could always live somewhere where the climate is always the same, like England, where it's wet and cold most of the time, or Southern California, where it's just sort of sunny and meh most of the time. But there's always something challenging about Australia's climate. Oh my gosh, it gives you something to get out of bed for, whether it's the scorching heat or the freezing cold. And I say that as I'm speaking to you in winter here on the southern tablelands of New South Wales, where it's absolutely freezing at the moment. So yeah, I think there's also something about that in terms of there's never a dull moment, is
No,
there?
never. It's part of it, and it's why we love Australia, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think so. Do you have particularly a passion for stock, or is it crops, or is it both? Or
So I grew up mainly with cropping and some sheep, and I've always loved cows. And my grandparents used to always go up to Queensland. I used to always tell them, "Oh, bring me home Brahman when you come home." They never did. But when I moved here, it's a lot of cattle, and I love cattle. It is actually probably my biggest passion in farming. So I would have to say cattle. We show cattle here as well. We have a cattle stud, and we go to Adelaide show and Melbourne show and all that, and we do love it.
that's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me, when you talk about who are you talking about?
Me and my husband Mason,
Hmm.
and we've got a little girl that's only about 6 weeks old.
Wow.
Yeah, we're very much a we now. We're officially a family of three. um,
Wow.
but we're actually on his family farm here. It's called Warrawindi,
Yeah.
near Penola.
That's great. Fantastic. Congratulations on the little girl.
Thank you.
Now, tell me, in 2015, when you were 22, there was a significant incident that occurred. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I remember being at the footy actually when this all happened, and we were in the finals with our local footy club, which is the first time in like 50 years I think we made finals. So it was a big deal. So all our family was there cheering them on, and we were actually up half time. And I got a phone call from one of our neighbours, and she said, "Oh, Benny, you burning any rubbish down there by any chance?" And I was like, "No, definitely not. Can you go down and have a look? I'm on my way home." So got in the ute, and by the time I got to the ute, she rang straight back and said, "I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but it's actually your home, and it's our family home. That's my grandparents built it, and then I grew up in it. And my dad grew up in it. And it was a beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful old homestead. And I still remember driving down the driveway and seeing all the lights. There was heaps of people there, and parked the ute and come running over. And my grandma, she's like the biggest rock in the family. She's like the most beautiful lady in the world. And here she was just laying on the ground on gravel, just crying her eyes out. Just, yeah. And that did break me that day. Just seeing her, someone so strong, just crying. And
Do we know how the fire started?
yeah, it was from the hot water service.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They found we had the investigators out there, and Yeah, and they found that. So I'm just glad that nobody was home. Yeah, my brother was up racing in New South Wales, so luckily he wasn't home because he normally would be, and nobody was hurt. Just lost a lot of stuff.
Right.
Stuff can be replaced, so that's yeah. I still believe everything happens for a reason. Keep telling myself that. I guess that's sort of goes into my next stage of my anxiety. Like during that point, I was a very anxious and quite depressed person at this point. My depression got worse as got on because anxiety had control of me basically. With the house, with losing in the house, Dad and Grandpa wanted me to take charge of rebuilding. And talking to the builder, we decided to rebuild. And I remember straight away saying, no way I can do that. No way I can go, the builder's office and talk to the builder or go pick out curtains. Like I can't walk into shops. Like I don't want to do this. But then they kept pushing me to do it because they wanted it to be my home for the next generation kind of thing
Right.
at this point.
So they wanted you to be involved.
Yes, because I was going to be living in it.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, let's do it. And the first meeting with the builder was actually over dinner with my dad. So that was all right. And then after that, I remember going to the architect's house and sitting out the front in the ute and I had the biggest sweat rings around my arms. I was on the verge of a panic attack and it was just horrendous. And I wish I just got out and went straight in, but I sat there for, could have been half an hour. I actually don't know.
Oh,
Because I was early, because I didn't want to be late. Anyway, eventually went in.
It's like internal torment, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like I need to go, I can't go. I need to go, I can't go. I must
Yeah.
stay here. I need to get out of the car. No, I won't get out of the car. Like it's like this internal battle is what it sounds like.
Oh, exactly right. And that's the best thing to do is just get out of the car and just go do it. Like you just, which I know that now.
You have to take yourself by the scruff of the neck and just drag yourself along.
And I don't know what my worst case scenario would have been. Like that's what you got to sort of tell yourself, like what's going to happen. The guy's not going to be home or it doesn't matter. So I bet nothing happened. Like I went in there, did the drawings with him.
Right.
It was all good. And like he
Right.
wouldn't have known except for my sweat rings, of course. But that was the start. So that really pushed my comfort zone a lot. And I'm very, very grateful that happened because, from there I, had to go pick out the carpets and curtains and all this stuff. And I did all that on my own. And
Wow. That's like almost like a training session, isn't it? Because there's so many decisions to make when you're building a home. Everything
that's right.
from
Yeah.
the carpets to the fixtures to the paint colors to there's just so many decisions to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working with a doctor at that point and we're trying a few different things. And we did like a hierarchy to, push myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first one was call up and order a pizza on the phone because I couldn't make phone calls either.
Oh
It's like little
no.
things. But then, the 10th thing was go do a full load of groceries, not just a little bit, like a full trolley.
Wow.
Because that was a big, big thing for me. But I'm glad to say that that's all in the past now and thankful for the house rebuild journey that it
Yeah.
really did push my comfort zone out. And that's why I always say everything happens for a reason. I don't know if the house didn't burn down, I would have probably found another way to push those boundaries, but I don't want to dwell on the negatives. So I always think of the positives.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
way that I look at life now.
Good on you.
Have you seen any of our 7 large RFDS flight simulators as they move around Australia, attending school, community or field days? Each is being towed by an Isuzu D-Max Ute or MUX SUV, courtesy of Isuzu Ute Australia. Reliable vehicles are imperative in the harsh Australian outback, and the Isuzu D-Max and MUX vehicles are the perfect match for the long-distance heavy towing demands of these simulators right across Australia.
So here's the big question. How then did the naked farmer start? And you're going to have to explain what the naked farmer is because many listeners won't have heard of the naked farmer.
How it all started was not long after this, probably it was 2017 it started. So a couple of years after, I was sitting on the tractor. It was harvest. And a good friend of mine, Emma Cross, we thought it would be really funny if we did some, naked farmer shots around the farm, everything fully covered, of course. But
Yeah.
just a bit of a joking calendar for my mates. And it was going to be me naked around the farm everywhere. It was going to be hilarious. We took about 2 photos. One was in the back of a truck full of lentils and one was in a canola crop. never happened, the calendar. So that was the end of that. But I was sitting on the tractor the following year and I was planting those same lentil seeds back in the ground for the next season. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, oh, how cool would it be if, we could sort of connect the town and city people with farming. Like, we can use social media, we can engage with this sort of tasteful naked farmer stuff, to get their attention. And within the first couple of weeks, it blew up to thousands of followers.
Now, hold on a second, Ben. We have to describe for people, like you sort of saying, yeah, when I was in this truck of lentils. So we're talking about a massive container filled with lentils, having just harvested, and
Yep.
there's you immersed, immersed in the lentils, clearly naked, nothing visible, but clearly naked, lying there enjoying yourself. It made me smile when I saw that photo. It really did. Because it's just so unconventional and so outside the box,
Exactly. And it got your attention. And that was
It sure did. Yeah.
the goal, to get everyone's attention, not just farmers, but everyone. And to really understand that whole, what farmers are doing and all this sort of stuff. But within the first couple of weeks when it blew up, I went through the followers and it was all farmers. It was not the city and town people that I was trying to aim for.
But I bet you all the farmers thought it was brilliant.
Oh, it was. They were sending in photos left, right, and center. It was crazy. And
So they started to do their own naked photos.
yep, and sending them in, and then that's how it sort of rolled on from there.
Now, what sort of channels were you doing this on? Was this on Facebook or was this on?
It started on Instagram and then moved over to Facebook. Yeah. So then after, that, I thought I want to be able to use social media for something good. There's a lot of negative things on there. I want to use it for good. And I wasn't getting those town and city people, like I said. So I thought, how cool would it be if we could help farmers and mental health? And that's when it takes guts to get your gear off, as it takes guts to talk about mental health. And I thought, perfect. Get everyone's attention. We can sprinkle some mental health stuff in here. We can really marry this all together. And that's when the town and city people came.
And it was an act of marketing genius, Ben. It really was, because it does take guts to get your gear off. And it does take guts to challenge, to tackle mental health. And people in rural and remote areas are very familiar with mental health challenges, and it's often stigmatized. It's often something that's very hard to talk about. It's often a lack of service or lack of access to be able to tackle it. So you're touching a little bit on a raw nerve, but there's this wonderful wry sense of humor in these photos. Could you describe some of them? Because I am going to try to include as many as we can.
Some of my favorites, my all-time favorite, was there's up in Queensland, way up north. He was mustering a whole heap of cattle, and here he is in the saddle, and you can see that he's fully naked. You can only see the back of him, and he's just walking down the road on his horse, and all this dust and all the cattle. And that was pretty epic. There was some with mustering with helicopters, and you can see all the crew on motorbikes naked, and then you can see the guy in the helicopter naked. It's just absolute brilliance. Like the amount of stuff that they did to get this done. And one of my favorites that we actually took ourselves was here in SA near Maitland, and we had about 30 farmers, and they were all in the hay bales facing out to the paddock, and a crop duster came in and come down nice and with just water and just sprayed it. Made an epic photo. So there's so many amazing photos that people were sending in and that we took.
There's a beautiful one which has got this whole line of just bare bottoms. It's just like a line of, it must be about 40 or 50 farmers of all different ages and all different bottoms of all different colours. Some hairy, some not hairy, some with cellulite, some with not. I mean, it's just such a brilliant photo. And in a landscape or an environment where you go, it's a farm, it's outside.
And it's all designed to put that smile on your dial and to read the caption. And that's what it was all about.
And did it work? Like, how did it go viral?
Oh, it absolutely did. Within the first couple of months, it went really viral. And I kept it secret that I was running it at this point, because I was still, learning to live with my anxiety and all this at this point. And I remember the Women's Day magazine contacted and wanted to do a story on us. And I thought, cool, yep, let's do it. And I wanted to say anonymous, but they really wanted to share who was behind it.
Oh, well, see, this is going to push you outside your comfort zone.
Massively.
With anxiety. How did you tackle that?
So it was all just like over the phone interview, which was kind of, it was fine. And I thought, oh, nobody in my family reads Women's Day magazine. We'll be fine. I was wrong. My auntie was in the hair salon and she was reading the magazine, and here we were. So, and her daughter was actually one of the models in our shoot. It was great, but and I was most nervous about my grandparents finding out what they would think, but they were the biggest supporters of it and absolutely loved it. But yeah, from there, and as soon as the Women's Day magazine happened, it just went bonkers. And we were doing my first TV interview was with Channel 10. That was Studio 10. Could you imagine me at this point with anxiety trying to navigate going on live TV? Like it was,
Yeah. How did you do it?
I talked to a local lady, Andrea, helped my mindset with it all. And she was a big help. And she even like threw me some questions that were inappropriate, but just in case, because, they could ask some weird questions. So we
Yeah.
prepared for that, and that was fine. And I cannot remember being there. I went to the 10 studios. It's completely blacked out. I've watched it back once, and I
You
did.
know, it happened, but you don't remember any of it.
No, and I did fine. Like it was actually pretty good. So it worked. And then from there, we did lots of like Sunrise and the Today Show, the Project.
Did it get easier as you went along, or was it still the same where
It
every
it
time you had to do an interview, it was just traumatic?
it did get easier because I was talking about something that I was very passionate about, and there was no wrong answer because it's
Mm.
what I was doing. So it was pretty good. From there, like it just blew up worldwide, and it literally, I was getting phone calls from everywhere and emails and whatever, and I was doing 30 to 40 interviews a week at one point, and that was just
Wow.
so taxing on my mental health because you're on so much. Like I was a bit challenged with my anxiety too, so it really drew my body out, and I actually got ran down a few times, ended up in hospital a couple of times because of that, because I would stress myself out so much. Yeah, so it's a huge journey, and grateful for the good that we've done over that time. And
You must be so proud of yourself. I mean, if you're not, I'm going to tell you you should be, because like it's one thing to have crippling anxiety that becomes almost a disability in your life, to end up trying to do something about it, and as a consequence putting yourself in the very circumstances that trigger you.
mm,
Like it's really takes a brave individual, I got to say.
the real
Yeah.
pinch me moment was I did a radio interview just for our local radio in Horsham, ABC, and Grandma had just had a knee reco, and I took her out for a coffee that morning while I was in town. I said, "Oh, do you want to come to this radio thing with me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll come watch." And she come in, and I did the interview, and she was watching me the whole time. And I come out, and she goes, "Oh my God, how are you doing that? Like, just go back a couple of years ago, and like I had to go to the supermarket with you. Like it was insane." I sat back and I was like, "Wow, you're so right. I have come a long way."
It's an acknowledgement, and and as I said, it's you taking yourself by the scruff of the neck and just and
I
walking yourself through
I
it.
I always told myself that I wasn't like doing it for myself. I thought if I can, get on Studio 10 at this point, I remember this is my exact thought process. If I help one person out of this, it's gonna be good, and there's gonna be thousands of people watching this. So I was doing it for everyone else, and I really wanted to make a difference in the mental health space. And yeah, so I'm so glad that we did it. I'm so glad I pushed myself to do it. Like I do it all the time now, so it's no dramas at all. And I've learned to really work with my anxiety challenges now, and I can see the signs, and I know how to look after myself better and how to know my signs with my anxiety and what to do. And so it's good.
That's fantastic. Have you had feedback from people who've watched and heard and seen and laughed at the images and the things that you've done? Have you had anybody reach out to you and say, "Hey, you've really been a great role model for me, and this is how you've helped"?
Yeah, all the time, through the whole journey that happened. And one in particular that springs to mind is we did a thing like Sheepvention, which is a little sheep show here. We were on the cover of the catalogue, so it was a bit of a controversial thing, but they were trying to do something different to.
Naked farmer photos.
Yeah, yep,
Yep.
yep.
Okay.
So yeah, it was on the cover, and this young girl, she was probably 15 or 16, come to the show with her dad, and they started talking about it, and it was a real good talking point for them on their journey here. And the dad really opened up to her about his challenges with depression over his time and all this other stuff. And And she come up to me at that show and she said, "Thank you so much, because I had no idea, and now Dad's gonna go get help, and we're talking about it as a family now, and you've really opened up the conversation in our family." So that's
That's
that's our
great.
that's what we really wanted to achieve, is just start the conversation and use it as an icebreaker. Show your mate one of those photos and have a good
Yeah,
laugh about it, and then talk about what it's about. So it was a really good icebreaker.
that's fantastic. Do you feel you fulfilled what you set out to do, or do you think this is going to be lifelong? Do you think this is just going to continue?
So we've had some challenges with social media recently. Facebook and Instagram are knuckling down on this whole nudity thing, even though it's no nudity, but it's close enough to. So they like to take all our posts down. So it's making it impossible for us to keep posting and that. So the social media stuff is taking a step back. And I have too, I guess, in a way. Like, I'm doing a lot less speaking gigs and stuff, and I'm really focusing on our family farm and our family.
And your
And
little girl.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
our biggest goal right now is to financially set ourselves up so that we can help in a bigger way later. So that's what we're really focusing on at this point, and I'm really excited because we're nearly there. So it's we've got goals and stuff that we're trying to achieve, and we're getting there quite quickly. Who knows what the future holds? The naked farmer on social media is going to be very quiet, but what the future holds, nobody knows. So
Watch this space.
yeah.
Now, you've raised quite a bit of money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service over time, and for that, we're forever grateful. Do you have any idea on how much that would be over time?
Oh gosh, probably should have tallied that up before today, shouldn't I? But it's definitely over 100 grand, I'd say. Yeah, and we did a lot of charity calendars, and we did a lot of fundraisers and some auctions and stuff. So we had an absolute ball with this whole thing, and we become a mental health organisation ourselves. So we did tick that list up like that off when about on year 2 or 3. We managed to get that through, but we decided to continually support the Royal Flying Dog Service, because you guys are in the ground, like you're there in these communities making the difference, and we're doing what we're doing, and we get out there as much as possible too. But we're not as big as web as the Royal Flying Doctor Service. So
Yeah, we have a national footprint, so we've got a
yeah,
little bit of a head start on you, I
yeah,
think.
you do.
Yeah.
So funding the mental health side of that was really important to us. The communities that we visited, because we did a lot of tours around, so we did like a big mainland Australia tour and stuff, and Tassie and whatever, and we'd always see the impact of the Royal Flying Doctor Service in these communities. So it's, you can actually see where your money's going, and yeah, so we were funneling as much money there as possible, and I'm really proud of that.
You should be.
But it's not me. It's the community that did it. I just put it all
Yeah,
together, but it's the community's money. It's the community's photos. The farmers that got their kid off to take these photos, and yeah, so I just put it all together. But they raised the money.
We hope you're enjoying this episode, made possible with the support of RFDS national partner HCF, Australia's largest not-for-profit health fund. HCF's commitment to the RFDS reflects its dedication to addressing the unique healthcare challenges faced by those in remote and rural regions. To learn more, search HCF online.
has this whole journey of yours changed your perspective on life at all?
Absolutely. Yep.
In what way?
Life is going to have challenges along the way, and it always will. And mental health is a real thing. People around you, at some point, you probably will be affected by it yourself, whether you know it or not. Anxiety and depression and all that it does touch us. And now that I'm at this point in my life, I've just turned 32. So my perspective on life, now that I've got a little one too, it does change your whole mindset on the next generation. And the past 5 years, we've really worked on regenerative ag on the farm here. Like, we don't use any chemicals or anything, and we're preparing for drought times, and we're actually in drought now. But yeah, so like, we're making a lot of steps now to just live a peaceful life, and I think that's the key. And if you're one of the biggest causes of mental health challenges is financial issues, and my perspective on life now is to lower that risk of financial, trying to set ourselves up now, and especially while we're young. Like, I've always invested into shares and farms, my farmland, and
Mm.
animals and cropping or whatever it is at the time. being able to set ourselves up so that you don't have to stress about money as much, because I find that we need to be present with our lives, and social media, it does take away from that sometimes. There's some good stuff on there too, of course, but there's a lot of things happening in today's life, and just being present with your family, with your friends, with your farm. Like, it's a different feeling when you're out there and your mind is at peace, I guess. If we can be more peaceful for the majority of our life, it's I think that's the goal. So that's my perspective on life at the moment.
It's very good, and it's also great advice for those that are listening.
It's not easy to do, so I don't want to. It's one of those things. It's like, oh, just pay off debt or invest and all this other stuff. But when you're years like this year, especially here, like we're in a drought, so everyone's making $0 or negative $100,000 because they're feeding their stock and whatever. So it is really, really difficult to get to that point, but it is possible if you believe it. So
I completely agree. And do you have any advice for others that might be experiencing mental health challenges, things that they should do, or somebody that themselves experiences anxiety?
it's always a cliche thing to say is like, talk to your mates. So there's definitely that. But I find, like, with me, it's always making sure that you have that network around you that can pick up on things. Like, they know your signs, when you're not 100%. And that's like with me and my partner, like, we know if one of us isn't 100%, the other one picks up the slack. So we're a team. And I think, having those friends around you and that family that pick up on those things, and that you can open up to, is really, really important. If you don't have that, there's plenty of support out there, and it's free, a lot of it. So make the most of it. Yeah. And probably my biggest thing that was part of my whole journey was eating and drinking well, drinking plenty of water, not sugary drinks all the time, and eating really good food. That was an absolute game changer for me. That's, if I'm eating a lot of bad stuff, my mental health will decline rapidly. When you feel shit, you look shit.
You're preaching to the choir on that one. I am a
Yep.
firm believer that you are what you eat. So
Yep.
if you want to feel
100%.
well, then you've got to eat well. Yeah.
And it keeps your mind clear. That's probably been my biggest learning over my journey, is the eating and drinking well, and just try it and prove me wrong.
And okay, well, I have one last question before we go. I want to
Yep.
thank you for a fantastic opportunity to talk to you. Do you ever have the urge to take your clothes off and run around naked? Or have you overcome that idea at this point and just say, no, look, maybe I can just keep my kid on now?
Well, when you become a dad, you just get this dad bod for some reason. No, of course I'll do it for a good cause, but I just don't do it on a daily basis. That's all.
Good. That's okay. And there's nothing wrong with it for those out there that are listening that really do enjoy it. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ben. Lots of love to you and the fam and the beautiful little daughter of yours. And we look forward to seeing your next adventure.
Thanks, Lana. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with family and friends, and subscribe and follow, and then you'll never miss the next adventure. For all the details on how you can share your story with us, join our Facebook group and donate to the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Check out the show notes for details. The Flying Doctor podcast is recorded on Ngunnawal land. It's produced by Sophie Campbell, edited by Mandy Coolin, and I'm your host, Lana Howarth. Catch you next time.
With over 120 episodes, you can listen to more incredible Flying Doctor Outback adventures whenever you like. New episodes are released every week, so tune in next time to hear another unmissable Australian story. This is the Flying Doctor podcast.